I'm talking about.
Yeah, actually, they took the bridge off because they determined that it's not a short-term thing.
Right,
That's
but
a
this long-term thing. What are the short-term ones then?
And some of the short ones are improving the bikeability and the walkability.
Right.
Very strong focus on economic development.
Right,
We're going to bring
right,
that new person on board. We're going to get One Washington Place built, but then we're going to look for the next big
Right.
downtown project.
Right. Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm going to do this.
So you're the new person on Delnor.
Second, they're starting to serve breakfast. If you wouldn't mind taking your seats. Everybody got so quiet. Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to the 2020 Mayor's Breakfast. Thank you for joining us this morning. I am Margaret Perot, the President and CEO of the Batavia Chamber of Commerce. I would like to first of all thank Mayor Schilke for taking time to present to us this morning. I look forward to hearing your extraordinary insights into the past, present, and future of the Batavia and Fox Valley area. Before we would begin, I would like to recognize this morning's overall event sponsor, Northwestern Medicine. I would like to invite Anne Marie Bianchi, Program Coordinator of the Community and Government Affairs, to come up and share with us an update on activities at Northwestern Medicine. I'm sure you have a lot to report. Thanks, Anne Marie.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How can we not start this day amazing? It's almost 70 today and it's November. What a beautiful start. My name is Anne Marie Bianchi. I work in Government and Community Affairs for Northwestern in the West Region. I am privileged again to be here and to represent Northwestern Medicine as we support this wonderful community and the mayor and all the residents of Batavia. I just want to update you on a couple things and just note a few things from Northwestern Medicine. Last year, when we reported that the phase 1 of our new operating room construction was being completed. And that was the 9 operating rooms, 11 surgery bays, the new shipping and receiving dock, and some other things in the Delnor Hospital. Now we are just completed phase 2, which we converted those old operating rooms into recovery space and GI procedure rooms. So they're going to be brand new, better to service our patients and use our space wisely. So that will be opening up sometime in Thanksgiving. And then phase 3, the final phase, will begin in December and will be completed in summer of 2021. So lots of construction over there, good growth, and more services to provide to your residents. So we're really proud of that, and we're really excited of these new capabilities we can do at Delmar. The other thing I wanted to mention is I really want to stress getting your flu shot this year. I know that some people hesitate in doing that for whatever reason. But this year, more than ever, all Northwestern Medicine staff and physicians are asked to get their flu shot for prevention, especially this year with COVID. We have had, COVID and influenza overlap. Some of the symptoms that overlap that look similar are fever and sneezing and coughing and fatigue. But one symptom that COVID has that our influenza does not have is that loss of taste and smell. So if you notice that at all, that's a good trigger for you to think that maybe you should get tested. But now more than ever, getting their influenza shots helps our physicians and helps reduce the hospitalizations in the hospital. And right now, our hospital rooms are very critical to keep available for patients that are in desperate need of our services. So I just encourage you to do that, protect you, protect your family, protect those around you. And obviously, you've heard over and over again the best prevention for COVID is wearing your mask, practice social distancing, and washing your hands. There is clinics, King County Counts is a service that you can get COVID testing, people that are undocumented or uninsured. There's also places throughout Batavia. If you look on the VNA and the website, the health department are great places to find those resources. So please use those if you need to get any COVID testing. For influenza, you can go to any of our immediate cares and walk in and get your influenza shot. Also, there's wonderful pharmacies and Walgreens and things like that that you can get your influenza shot. The last thing I want to tell you, and I did it lastly because it is from the heart. We are just so grateful that this community and the Fox Valley community was overwhelming support during the beginning of our pandemic. Delnor was infiltrated with donations of meals and snacks and PPE products and homemade face masks. Out of any of our hospitals, I will say Delnor was just inundated with this, and support and cards and banners. I know this because I was very involved. I was working quite a bit with this area, and it was just an outpouring. And I cannot tell you how much it has lifted our staff during that time, encouraged our staff, kept them going when they were working 18 hours or longer. You know, just seeing patients, we're not knowing what we're dealing with. There was just so much community support, and I just want to thank you. Thank the community of Batavia for doing that and for being a support to our hospital. It's been wonderful that our hospital has benefited, but also your community, because we were so blessed in that way. We were able to give back to the community and really reach out to the organizations in your community that need help and PPE products. So we were able to share that donations and those things that came in. So thank you, City of Batavia. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the citizens of Batavia that really came and rallied around our hospital. We appreciate it, and we are so proud to be in this community. Have a good morning.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Northwestern medicine is definitely in the front lines facing this pandemic. We appreciate all that you do to keep our community healthy and to take care of us when we are not. Northwestern Medicine is a chairman's circle, an enhanced member that chooses to invest in the Batavia Chamber at the highest level to demonstrate support for our community. Please notice this list of all of the 8 chairman's circle members highlighted on our chairman's circle banner: Northwestern Medicine, the Homestead, Patriot Heating and Cooling, Georgia Law Center, BEI Misella, Orange Home Services, My Place Hotel, and D&M Home Improvements. We appreciate your investment. Please make every effort to support these businesses. I would also like to thank all of our sponsors of today's event: the Homestead, Drendel and Jansen's Law Group, BATV, and the City of Batavia. Your investment in the Chamber is greatly valued, and we sincerely appreciate your support. I would like to thank LinkedIn for hosting our in-person event this morning and accommodating the change of event size and social distancing requirements. Of course, I would also like to thank Zoom. Where would we be without Zoom? Last year I thought that was just a cartoon word that meant acceleration. Obviously, the pandemic has made us do things differently this year. I want to thank all of you who are able to join us in person this morning, and thank you to those who are joining us virtually. We have many esteemed representatives in attendance, in person and virtual, that I would like to give special mention to. The members of the Batavia Chamber Board of Directors: Jen Brenz, our chairman from BATV, Jessica McGrail from Dollar & Cents Bookkeeping, Roman Seckel from Drendel Jansen's, George Gladys, Volkman Insurance, Amanda Slayer, the Homestead, Nick Neindorf, Edward Jones, Christopher Rooney, Advanced Disposal, Waste Management, Bill Bukowski, Two Roads Lending, Mary Marconi Popiel from Special Occasions, Janet Roman, Inland Bank, Sam Bell, Clean Pest Solutions, and Jamie Sam with Local Connect. Thank you all for your time, expertise, and commitment to our organization. I want to recognize our current Chamber ambassadors, our members that represent us to the community and assist us with our mission: Kathy Barkay, Lori Biddle, Angela Birchfield, Mike Burke, Tammy Caltagironi, Jim Canella, George Gladys, Carrie Hosel, Georgine O'Dwyer, Kevin Laurie, Anita Malik, Laura Matter, Jessica McGrail, Angela Morris, Paula Mueller, Dave Peterson, Scott Russell, Jamie Sam, Carrie Siebold, Michael Schultz, Don Sinnott, Sarah Vogelsinger, and Jenny Zack. Both the board and the ambassadors give their tremendous support to the Chamber, and I want to thank these individuals for their dedication to the Chamber and the future of businesses in Batavia. Now please help me recognize my partners at the Batavia Chamber, Shirley Mott and Patty Anselme. These guys are amazing individuals who can handle anything thrown at them at a moment's notice. I sincerely appreciate all you did for this morning, and I love working with you guys. I would also like to mention several groups with us this morning that play a significant role in making Batavia one of the best places to work, live, play, shelter in place, and quarantine. Please hold your applause to the end, but join me in thanking the City Councilmen and staff representing the City of Batavia, including our City Administrator, Laura Newman, Fire Chief Randy Dykey, and Police Chief Dan Ewell, our board members and staff of the Batavia Township, led by Lee Tracy, Batavia Township Supervisor, board member and staff of Batavia Public Schools, led by Superintendent Lisa Hitchens, and Board President Kathy Dremel, board members and staff of the Batavia Park District, led by Allison Niamella, and the Executive Director, and Patrick Callahan, the Board President, board members and staff of the Batavia Public Library District, led by George Sheets, Executive Director, and Joanne Smith, Board President, board members and staff of Batavia Main Street, led by Beth Walker, Executive Director, and Board President Bob Hansen. Thank you all for your dedication and partnership with the Batavia Chamber. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our featured guest, Mayor Jeffrey Schilke. Mayor has been the mayor of Batavia for 39 years, beginning in 1981. He is currently in his 10th term, the longest serving mayor in Kane County history. His accomplishments in our town have an impact on our surrounding area and are immeasurable. He is a key reason Batavia is as remarkable as it is today. It is truly my honor to welcome the Honorable Jeffrey D. Schilke, Mayor of Batavia, and the 2004 recipient of the Citizen of the Year Award. Welcome.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. So I'm going to publicly take off my mask here for the moment, just because I can be heard better speaking in the mic, and they got me all wired up, and we were afraid when they were wiring I was going to get the mask tied up with my wiring, so I've got to look out for that. First of all, obviously I've been here many years and have done this a number of times. I will tell you, obviously today is perhaps the most unique set of circumstances that myself or any other mayor in the regions ever had to deal with as far as community issues. And in the case of Batavia, we, I think, are on the brighter side of the spectrum, if there is such a thing. Yesterday, as many of you know, I have some other roles in the region. I serve as chairman of the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning's Council of Mayors, which is based in downtown Chicago, and we've been zooming like crazy for the last 5 months. So I don't have to get down to Chicago very much. But as a result of that, yesterday I was invited to participate in a direct meeting with Governor Pritzker to talk about the whole pandemic situation and some of the things that were revolving around it. And prior to that, I had a meeting beforehand for an hour with Mayor Lightfoot and several of my other counterparts in the Chicagoland region, and we kind of pre-planned what the conversation from our end was going to be when we met with Governor Pritzker. The meeting with the governor, I felt, went very well. He was obviously, probably shouldn't have been in probably the best mood because he had just taken the hit with his proposal for the fair tax being defeated, but he didn't even bring that up. But as a result, you know, I think I come away with a lot of ideas and observations about what is and what is not going to happen. And I guess probably the biggest prediction I'm going to have is that government finance, as we know it, is going to start to get extremely tight in the immediate days ahead. I think the state of Illinois in particular is in very, very tight finances. I mean, seriously tight. And if so, all the mayors, I believe, have come away with the idea that if we think we're going to go to the state of Illinois and get any new grants or any funding for any particular proposal, that's probably not on the table for at least the immediate future, and it may be a number of years down the road. And I guess it's still kind of an open-ended question where what kind of finances are going to come from the federal government. But the day of all the grants and all the funding opportunities and support for the pandemic and whatever I think are going to be very challenged in the days ahead. So this is going to be a very difficult time to be in government or to be a member of a chamber organization because there's a lot of grand ideas and a lot of needs and a lot of things you have to support. But to put it bluntly, the money's going to get real tight here very, very quickly. And in the case of Batavia, as you will hear, we've got kind of a unique story when it comes to that. And I just am very pleased to be the mayor of the town I am because we've got a dynamic staff that really has run our community and kept us our head above water and kept us out of trouble. So I'm going to mix a little history with this program today because you really can't understand how Batavia is where it is without understanding a little of the history. So I'm going to start with the first slide. And this is a picture taken of what today is the Batavia Government Complex at the corner of Island Avenue and Houston Street. And it was taken in 1968, shortly before the Batavia Body Company left the building and left the area. And I took this picture deliberately because shortly before I took it, a truck had come through with a bunch of mud on it, and they had totally coated the street with mud, as you can see in the picture. But it kind of increases the downside of the picture. You can see the big electrical tower that was right in the middle of downtown Batavia. And you can see there was a lot of storage of trucks because of Batavia Body still being there. And it was a very unsightly situation, to put it quite bluntly. In 1968, in his last year in office, former Mayor Arthur Swanson, one night at the City Council, announced what I sense was a really dynamic moment in the history of Batavia with his proposal that the city of Batavia buy this area at the north end of the island and seek a redevelopment of it. And I will tell you there was probably 5 people who were really key to this whole thing. One was Mayor Swanson, the other one was his successor, Mayor Robert Brown, who then was a member of the City Council. And the other 3 were Jim Hansen, who was chairman of the City Council Development Department and later was Kane County Superintendent of Schools. And the other 2 were Peg Bond, who the Big Pond Center is named after. She was chairman of our Plan Commission. And the last one was Philip B. Elstrom, who at the time was just a local printing company guy, but he later became chairman of the Kane County Board. All those people I just named are dead. But they leave a legacy of some stuff that really put Batavia on a very dynamic course that we have today. So let's go to the next picture. Okay, this is a picture taken in 1969 of Batavia High School from the air, looking from the south over Mooseheart, looking south, and you can see what was today, this is a small part of what Batavia High School is, but that was the original high school building that was built out there. West Wilson Street was just in the processes of having just been finished being extended from Van Noordtreek out to Randall Road. And as you can see, there's nothing else out there. This is just Batavia High School out there by itself. And if you look in the top of the picture, you can see the gravel road that was Western Avenue.
Hold for 1 second. We're having sound difficulties, so Jen Brent's is going to work on that with BATV. Sorry for the interruption. We just want to make sure that the people on Zoom can hear you. Sorry, Mayor, 1 moment.
No problem.
Okay. Brett, why is it?
No.
We're getting close, Mayor. Can you put it, the link to the YouTube in the chat and everybody can look at it? Okay. We have it all. Okay. We have the chat and Sophia, what's your Wi-Fi? Yeah, and like I said, oh yeah, that's great.
She's downtown. Yeah. North of Manatee, right. I don't know how she's doing, but she's in like like that. Not my weekdays.
Yeah, and I know things are so crazy with COVID, but.
It's a good intermission, let people
Yeah.
chit chat.
You know, I was going to say, if it worst comes to worst, I can stay after and we can just do me again, filming it in front of the camera.
Okay. Though
then
I
it-
know she's recording and she could edit it, but as long as it's out, so I'll ask her.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yes,
can,
yes, yes. Thanks, Mayor.
we can do it, you know, you can tell everybody it'll be.
Okay. Are you going to stand, or we should have the microphone? Yeah, I'll. Okay. And then Mayor.
I don't need to worry about any advertising department. I will be happy to do the story. You guys are getting ready to open up or something? Or are they still trying to, is there still construction going on? There is. It's all interior work? Drone footage. So you're looking at opening in December?
We'll get temporary occupancy in December, and then I think your target is for February.
Just a minute delay.
All right, I got you corrected now.
All right, we're going to get started in 1 minute. We're going to allow the people on Zoom to go over to YouTube. It's always a technological test in 2020. What else is new, right? So 1 minute and we'll get the mayor started again. Thank you.
Want me to start all over again?
No, you don't have to start all over again.
And there's the ability to add on. No.
Jen, you want to give me the thumbs up when you're ready?
right, we're back. Technologically, I'm told we're back in business, so we're going to continue. When we stopped, we were showing what Batavia High School looked like in 1968. And as you can see, there was no Batavia out there beyond Batavia High School and the city's then West Side Water Tower. And that's a little bit off the picture here. But if we go back and take this same picture today, that is nothing but one solid mass of houses, basically, and townhouses and apartments. It's a great housing mix. And a point here being that in 1981, the population of Batavia was, in the census, was 12,574. And today, we don't know what the new number is, but our best staff prediction is we're someplace over 27,000. So in that 50-year period, we have probably doubled ourselves in population, more than doubled ourselves in population. And so this has added a whole new dynamic to Batavia. Let's go quickly to the next slide. This is the intersection at Fabian and Randall Road in 1989. Now that's not all that, that's 30 years ago, basically. And it basically shows what it looked like then. There was two farms there on the corner, which is the bottom of the screen here is in Geneva, where the Home Depot is today. And the rest of that is all, as you know, is all some type of development. And then there's obviously more development going west. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is one of the better pictures that we have of past history in Batavia. This was taken by the late member of the City Council, Bill Hamilton, and he got up in an airplane and took a picture of what it looked like when the Batavia Dam broke in 1974. And you can see that where the Depot Pond is basically been made an enclosed island of water, and then at the northern tip of what today would be the gazebo by River Rain, that all went land-based, and land came out of the water, and you could walk over it. And you can see the Batavia Dam structure fully exposed there. And one of the issues we continue to deal with, there are two dams there. One that's made out of concrete, or limestone, basically, that was built in 1860. And the existing dam, which was built about 1912, which the east side of it is totally broken away. So let's go to the next. So this is the dam as it looks today. Over at the east side where you see the buildings here, that's been broken off, and so there's a tendency for all the water to flow toward the east side of the bank there, because they dug that out and dug the river deeper in about 1870 when they put this together to be able to force the water to run under the Challenge windmill factory was the idea, and there was a lot of that going on. But today the dam is something that, there's a lot of community conversation about it as to what we should or should not doing. I will tell you that I think the dam eventually will have to come out. There's people that love the dam, but the dam doesn't really serve any great reason. The state environmental groups all want the dams taken out of the Fox River because they're impeding the movement of fish and wildlife up and down the river. And the other problem you have is that every time you put a dam in, if you've got a wastewater treatment plant above it, like we do with Geneva, which is right there on the east bank of the river there on Route 25, you have a tendency to whoever's discharged from the sewer plant has a tendency to start floating down the river, and then it gets to the dam and doesn't have the ability to go over, so it starts sinking down to the bottom, and so that creates some health-related issues. So there's a lot going on with dams. The City Council and the Batavia Park District have just reached an agreement that we're going to bring in Hitchcock Design, engineering and planning firm from Naperville, and they're going to do a kind of a redesign of that whole area up there so that we can have a better idea as a City Council and a Park District what we can do in the future to make this thing even more community accessible, whether that's filling in parts of it. There's a lot of conversation about building a causeway from the tip of the island to the west bank of the river, someplace south of the bridge, Fabian Bridge. and then allowing that to be a separate body of water from the river where you would be able to maintain the depot pond, because if the dam breaks again, we will immediately start draining the depot pond and it'll end up being a mud flat. And so the depot pond has become a valuable community asset as far as thousands of people visit it every year. There's hundreds of prom pictures, wedding pictures, 50th wedding anniversary pictures. There's all kinds of people come down and have their pictures taken by the pond. And so it's become a community amenity that I think the City Council and I want to try to certainly maintain. And so one of the high priorities of our strategic planning process that we're going through right now is to kind of re-examine this north end of downtown Batavia and put it into focus as to what should be done there to, number one, preserve and enhance the amenities that are already there that were started back when the city of Batavia bought that property. And then we will also hopefully be in a position to plan for future redevelopments. I might note that when the city, when Mayor Swanson made the dynamic decision to buy that property, the city paid $759,000 and they bought 279,000 square foot of building space around what was then the old Appleton plant, which was then called Dunbar Capital. Much of that has been torn down. And they also got 15 acres of ground, much of which was sold to the Batavia Park District, but the entire depot pond is part of the Park District's ownership of all that property. So we do have public control over all the property, and it's publicly owned by the Park District, and certainly it also includes the space where the Depot Museum is and everything else. So for $759,000, that was a real moment of vision when the city of Batavia did that. I will note that when Mayor Swanson did it, and later Mayor Brown, when he kind of took it forward, they went through phenomenal amounts of opposition. There was a couple referendums that were defeated about trying to restore any buildings and everything else. But the city held its ground, and today we have what we have down there, and it wouldn't have happened had we not had some dedication and vision on the part of some of our forebears in city government. So let's go to the next slide. So in this whole thing about trying to get the river clean, we've just been the beneficiaries of almost a $30 million federal or state loan, I guess I would say, from the state EPA to rebuild the Batavia water treatment plant. And one of the key reasons that we were able to get this loan is that this is the nearest water treatment discharge point to the city of Aurora's area where they withdraw water from the Fox River for drinking purposes. So the state was very interested in getting the Fox River north of Aurora cleaned up as far as discharge of any type of sewer effluent from it. So Batavia got the opportunity to rebuild our plant and put in the most modern, advanced equipment. And so I could take you down to the sewer plant today, and where the discharge point is of water going into the river, I could take a glass and take the water and stand there and drink it in front of you because it's that clean. We take out all the effluent, we take out everything, and it's chemicalized. The one thing about this whole thing with all this water being discharged into the Fox River, I was at a meeting in Chicago in my other role, and the state came in and started sharing numbers on how much water was in each one of the rivers around us. In the case of the Fox River, about 47% of the water in that river comes to it on a daily basis from, I think it's 119 wastewater treatment plants between Waukesha, Wisconsin, and Ottawa, Illinois. And that water, when it's discharged into the river, is heavily chemicalized. So there's all kinds of chemicals. There's a lot of additives that almost make it an antifreeze situation. So if you've noticed the last few years, it's been harder and harder to freeze the Fox River for ice skating purposes. And so one of the advantages for Batavia would be if we can kind of seal off the depot pond from the rest of the river, we'll be able to gain kind of a fundamental control or chemical control over the water that's there, and hopefully we'll be able to return ice skating to downtown Batavia, which has been formerly it was a very popular activity for families to have. Now we've got a lot of things that are about to happen in Batavia with new buildings, and I've got some artist renderings I'm going to share here with you. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is the plan out at Holy Cross Church on West Main Street. They are going to build an Adoration Chapel onto their existing chapel on the east side of the building. And one of the things they want to add is a bell tower. And through the cooperative spirit of the Batavia Park District, we were able to arrange that the Park District donated the old bell from the original Catholic Church tower at Van Buren and Wilson to the Batavia Park District. The Park District came over with a crane and took off the covers on the bell tower and took the old bell out. It's now sitting over in the front entryway of Holy Cross Church, and they're going to restore the bell. And when they get their Adoration Chapel built, they're going to put the bell back up in the newly erected bell tower. I just think that's great Batavia history, and it speaks to, you know, some very prominent understandings of people who came before us and what that has meant, and I just take my hat off to Holy Cross for that. Okay, let's go to the next picture. Okay, this is one that's about to have some major change. This is the Methodist Church, and right next to it is Hubbard's. The old timers in the room will remember this to be Hubbard's Furniture Store. Now it's been the Acosta Consignment Shop was the last thing that was in there. And if you've noticed the last few months, you've seen the Batavia Fire Department trucks parked there almost every day. And what happened is that the Hubbard store building was sold to the Methodist Church. So the Methodist Church now owns that building. And the Methodist Church has donated that building to the, not donated, has loaned that building to the Batavia Fire Department. And our firemen, and we're inviting some of the other neighboring departments to come in there. That's a classic building to do drills and training in, because there's all these old walls and stairways and plaster and drywall, every kind of, so you can teach the guys how to break through a plaster wall, how to do a drywall, how to do, taking up floorboards. There's just been a great training exercise continuing to go on there. That will end sometime in the next year or so. This past year, we've also been storing all the toys for the Access Toy Drive in the back end of the building there. So we're just in the process of moving them out for their coming distribution in a few weeks. But let's go to the next slide. So inside the Hubbard building was the original gymnasium of Batavia High School, which was the gymnasium that was used in 1912 when the Batavia High School won the Illinois State Basketball Championship. And so I had the opportunity to take Jim Anderson, who worked for Hubbard's for many years as kind of their warehouse manager, in there with me rather recently. And Bob Hubbard had been kind enough to kind of tell me where he thought it was. So we went in and we found all the old markings still on the floor from when it was a Batavia High School gym. And so we made a photographic record of all the old, and you can see right here, the lines are still painted on the floor where the shooting was and all this other great stuff. So we've made a record of it, and so we're putting together a little book that we're going to give to the school district athletic department and the Historical Society and the Batavia Library. So people, if they ever want to see what the old gym looked like, the fire department's done enough dismantling in there. When the Hubbards moved in, they lowered the ceiling on the gym, so they used the second floor where the bleachers were as kind of a storage area. Now that that's kind of getting opened up, it gives you a better idea of what everything looked like. So we've got a photo record of that, but that building will be disappearing here very quickly in the next year or so. And let's show us what was going to happen here next. Okay, the Methodist Church is going to build an addition on to the north, to the back of the current church, to the north end of it. And that's going to be kind of a meeting area. They're talking about a coffee shop, but one thing they're going to be able to do is put a chairlift right in the front of it, so that right now, if people who are in a walker or wheelchair, they have a difficult time getting into the church sanctuary. This is going to allow them to come in at ground level from Batavia Avenue, where there will be a parking lot through the front end of it, and the building you see is going to be kind of at the back. And what's nice about this is that I am told by the Chicago Architectural Commission that they rank the Batavia Methodist Church as one of the top architecturally significant buildings in the suburban Chicago area, because it was all built in, they went out and gathered boulders in the fields around Batavia and built this. you know, in the late 1800s. And so this was a building that has some significant history with it. And it's something that we should be very, very proud of. And once they get the Hubbard's building removed, it's going to open that up for a much greater visibility. Right now, it's kind of tucked in there between all the buildings surrounding it, so we're going to reopen that. As many of you know, this building also has kind of a unique national historical connection, because for 3 years, between 1915 and 1918, the minister there was a guy by the name of Reverend Fray Arnold Moon, who ends up being the grandfather of Buzz Aldrin, who landed on the moon. And so we've got kind of a unique national connection there. Let's go to the next picture. Okay, this is a picture of the C.B. Condy House over at 210 North Washington Avenue. And this house was built by Cornelius B. Condy in 1845. And he moved himself and his families in there, and then in 1849 he left town for a year or two and went to the California Gold Rush, but he left his family in town. And then he came back, and then he handed it off to his family, and at the beginning of this year, in 2020, the last member of the Condy family left this house. So the same family had lived in this house for 175 years, through 7 generations. And again, the Architectural Commission came out and wanted to take a walk by this place and take some pictures, because they think this may have been the longest continuous house in the Chicagoland area that was built and lived in by the same family for 175 years. Now, this has been recently put up for sale, and we've got a meeting Monday night of the Historic Preservation Commission, and the new owner, we're hoping, is going to come to the meeting, and we'll have some conversations about what's going to happen here with this property. But this is a kind of a unique little historical story in itself on Batavia. So let's go to the next slide. So I apologize with the quality of the picture here, but this is intending to show you the east bank of the Wilson Street Bridge. And I wanted to use this to illustrate that the Wilson Street Bridge is another very unique story in the community of Batavia, in the fact that about 87% of the cost of that bridge and all the other things that surround it, this walkway that's on the east bank and the pedestrian bridge to the north, was 87% funded by the state and federal government. And one of the nice things about this, when this happened, we happened to have in downtown Batavia at the time the office of the Speaker of the House of the U.S. Congress in the person of J. Dennis Hastert. And he was very supportive of this, and as a result of that, at the end of the day, there was probably near $17 million spent on this bridge and the pedestrian bridge and the walkway and everything else, of which there's very, very little of that on the tax bill of any Batavian, because so much of it was paid for by the state and federal government. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this shows the walkway on the east bank of the river, which also connects into the bike trail, and some things we've done rather recently. We have hopes that when we get it up to the bridge, instead of making everybody pick up their bike and carrying up some stairs, we'll be able to let it go straight up on the banks of the Fox River to the north end of what becomes the old Challenge plant. And so we'll have a continuous bicycle ride way through there, and we'll be able to totally take all the bicycles off of the River Street, keep them out of the farmer's market, and certainly keep them out of the intersection at River and Wilson. So that's going to be a major enhancement. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, this shows from the City Hall looking on the other side of the river, which is the site where Larson and Becker used to have their plant. And thanks to the city having a tax increment financing, or a TIF district, a few years ago under the leadership of Bill McGrath, when he was city administrator, we were able to acquire this property from the Larson and Beckers, and we had all the buildings removed. And the beautiful part about this is that when we bought their property, we bought both sides of the street. And so if you look across the street from where our parking lot currently is on River at Spring, there's a bunch of vacant areas or whatever. And I think that the city's, and I'll probably be not the mayor when this happens, but the city's long-term plans will probably be that they will take where the existing Larson and Becker parking lot, as I call it, is located, and they will move the parking across the street to the vacant area, and then allow for the Larson and Becker property to be some kind of a new swift development that will have probably some types of retail users on the first floor, offices, and then there'll be some probably condos above it. And that'll be a very popular place to do something like this because the river view at this location is very dynamic. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is right outside the Depot Museum, and we've got some big plans for that under the direction of the Historical Society and the Batavia Park District. But I wanted to show this one because this shows the Quarry Stone Pond building, which was part of a TIF district, and along with Waterford to the north of that, which was also built because it was in a TIF district, because there was a lot of site preparation that had to be paid for that we were able to use to do that, to get that area redeveloped. But this bike trail now that goes by there probably has thousands of bicycle riders on a weekly basis. And this was all done after I became the mayor in 1981, and I will tell you that the proposal to take this bike trail north from this location to where we are, I took more hellfire and damnation from people that said it was going to be the ruination of their life. We were going to import all these robbers and burglars and drug dealers and everything that will be in there, and it was going to dramatically decrease all the property values. Well, I'm pleased to stand here today and tell you none of that happened. And now thousands of people, visitors to town and whatever have you, use it. So it just, you know, there's a lot of people that get afraid of certain situations and they don't know what they want to do. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is the Depot Pond. This is part of this 15-acre property that the city sold to the Park District after the city had initially bought the Dunbar Chapel property. I can't say enough to what happened here. We had the development of the Batavia Riverwalk, and there was, you know, Charlie Gillenwater was chairman, and Stephen Britta McKenna were very active in it, and there's a whole bunch of people that should be named if you're going to talk about that. But this got built, and this has been really a dynamic attribute to downtown Batavia. And included in this was the Peg Bond Center that nobody knew that was going to come, but Peg was one of them that was very chairman of the Plan Commission when this idea got put forward, and she was a believer in what she espoused, and so when she died, she left the money to build the Peg Bond Center. And so now we have the band shell and the meeting room, and we have literally thousands of people going through that on an annual basis. And then behind it is the River Rain Retirement Community, which is 85 unit of senior, federally subsidized senior housing. Well, that had been started before I got elected mayor, but it hadn't been finally approved, so I got to be involved in that. I will tell you that met with massive opposition from a number of people who said, oh, this is going to ruin downtown Batavia, and we're going to import a bunch of people that will go around and shoplift and armed rob us and whatever. Well, that never happened. And I can tell you that I can now sit here, and having lived in this town all my life, I can think of dozens and dozens of lifelong old-time Batavians who have been able to sell their house or whatever and move into this place, and for the last 35 years have lived out their lives in great dignity and security because this has been there. So again, another place that people got all excited about, and we I think made a true believer out of everybody when it was all done, but that really has been a really nice addition to the community. Okay, then we have a new sign just gone up. The Batavia Historical Society is trying to raise $2 million. I think they're near $1 million now that they have in the bank, and they want to build a big addition to the north of the existing Depot Museum. And we are very hopeful that that's going to happen in the next couple of years, and it'll go forward. And this will be just another major highlight because we have probably one of the greatest history stories of any city in the Chicagoland area to tell in Batavia. And I mean, it's just not local stuff. We can go into all kinds of national connections with our town, and this is going to give us the ability to showcase that and go forward. Let's go to the next one. So we have yet another project that's going to happen in our downtown. This is going to be right to the east of the Peg Bond Center. And this is the Flag Day Monument that we have a local citizens group that kind of Austin Dempsey is kind of heading up. And this is going to be a tribute to the American flag, given the fact that Dr. Bernard Sagrand lived right across the street here on South Batavia Avenue in 1916 when Woodrow Wilson proclaimed the first Flag Day on June 14th, which was the day that Betsy Ross presented the flag idea to the Continental Congress. And so what they want to do is build a monument that will be circular and walking, and on that monument they're going to highlight various events in American history like raising the flag at Iwo Jima, or after the 9/11 disaster, the dates when the American flag took a high degree of prominence in the history of the United States. And they've made it so it's a wall and circular, but it doesn't have an end to it. So when the future generations, if other things happen, they'll be able to add on to the wall and show what other things have happened. And they're also going to have on the outside of it a plaque situation where they're going to honor, so at least for the moment, all those from Illinois who have won the Congressional Medal of Honor. So let's go to the next slide. All right, this is probably one of the biggest pieces of news I can share with you. Again, I apologize for it. This is a year ago, this coming November 19th, I was asked to come out to Fermilab with the mayors of West Chicago and Warrenville, and we participated in the second groundbreaking for the neutron accelerator that is now being built out at Fermilab. And this is a $1.5 billion expense that's going to be spent out there over the next 5 to 6 years. They are quietly doing their thing out there. They had 2 groundbreakings. They had the first one, they had the governor and both U.S. senators and the congressmen all there, and that's going to be a building that's going to be built right to the east of the high-rise that's out there. And then where we're breaking ground here is in a space where they're going to do some facilities that I think are going to fire some neutrons out into space. They've got phenomenal ideas here, but the neat thing about this from Batavia's perspective is that once again, we have them doing a facility that doesn't smoke, smell, pollute, turn on bright lights, make noise, or contaminate the world in any shape or form. And this is all peaceful research, and if you look at the record of Fermilab, they get credit for helping develop the technology that led to the creation of the internet. And more interestingly, I was out there 2 years ago with the International Electrical Engineers Association, and they presented Fermilab with a plaque that I believe is hanging on their front door there now that gives them the credit for developing the technology that allowed for the building of the MRI medical research machine. That's where the ideas and the technology came from. So if you think of all the lives that have been impacted first by the internet and then by the MRI medical machine, which is wondrous, all the probably lives that have been saved in that, Fermilab's got a lot to brag about, and they don't, they're very attuned to keeping their eyes on the prize. But the one thing that's going to happen here, and I think we're already beginning to see signs of it, there are 30 foreign countries involved with Fermilab in building this facility. So we are now seeing and hearing that some of these foreign countries are coming into the area and want to buy a condo or a townhouse or two and have it available for when their people come to Fermilab to work on experiments that's there. And then more interestingly, I've been told this by some of our people in downtown Batavia, all these people come in here and Fermilab, I guess, has a little map that they hand out to them and say, if you want to eat, go up to the north end of the site and get on that place called Wilson Street and just drive west on that street. And you'll come down into that downtown where you have this great diversity of ethnic restaurants. And I guess our restaurants are starting to see some significant, value to that because they're getting a lot of people that aren't basically Batavians. But we're having a real boom in restaurants in Batavia right now. If there's a kind of a second big announcement here, it's the restaurant interests that we've got going on in Batavia at the moment, and I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, let's go to the next thing. Now, like every other town, our Randall Road section of the world has its vacancies. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of them here because I want to dispel some rumors that people have spewed on the internet. This is the old Sam's Club property. Now, what I can tell you is that Walmart, who owns Sam's Club, when they shut it down, they afforded Laura and I the opportunity to call Bentonville, Arkansas, where we were talking about 3 different people who I think maybe were in different parts of the world, and why they'd shut the store down. And I guess if I learned anything from the conversation, it was that they, as a corporation, they had made a decision that they didn't think it was a good idea to have a Walmart store and a Sam's Club side by side. So in the case of Illinois, on the same day, they shut down Batavia, they shut down Wheeling, they shut down Naperville, they shut down Romeoville, and maybe Moline. They just shut them down because they were all next to existing Walmart stores. And I guess they didn't want to compete against themselves. I don't know. But anyway, so they left us with this very large 200,000 square foot plus building. And so it has been sold in the last few weeks to a private redevelopment company. So in preliminary conversations we're having with them, it's been interesting, and they've been friendly. They have given us permission at no cost to us, other than I guess we're paying for the lights, to move the Batavia toy distribution program for 2020 into the front end of the building. So the football team and Roy Bailey and Jeannie and all those who are involved in that project have been moving all the toys out of the Methodist Church that's about the Hubbard's part of the Methodist Church out there, and so we're getting it ready for a day in December here when they're going to have the toy distribution. But that's going to be there as a kind of a one-time use. But I guess where we're thinking we're hearing here is that maybe the idea that's going to come out of this is going to become some kind of a large-scale indoor recreational center, I guess I would describe it, maybe, where they're going to have opportunities. I don't know if you're going to be able to go in there and kick soccer balls or shoot paintballs at each other or run around a track or whatever, but they've got some ideas for a very large-scale recreational facility. It's not going to be free. You're going to pay to go in and use it, but that seems to be what's maybe going to happen at that one. Okay, then let's jump across the street. Go to the next slide. And this is the Randall 15 movie theater. Now, this baby has been suggested, we're having a great time, I guess. I don't participate. Some people send me stuff, so I read it. But on the internet about, well, nothing's going to happen here and whatever have you. Well, as we all know, there's been a real kind of downtake in the movie world at the moment. A lot of the movies companies have closed theaters. This one, I can tell you, when it was shut down, they had just finished building the IMAX theater onto this thing, which is a unique feature in the movie business. They were in the process and had talked to us about taking out the pinball machine area that they had in the movie theater and turning that into a kitchen for a restaurant. And they were going to change out all the seats in the movie theater so that the back of the seat would have a drop-down tray on it, and they were going to have waitresses in there serving you food. So, and then right before they closed, because of the pandemic initially, they had spent thousands of dollars rewiring the place. I mean, they rebuilt the entire electrical system in this building. And before all that, they had told me on several occasions that they really liked this location because this had one of the strongest movie centralist locations in the Chicagoland area, where between being in the Tri-Cities of Batavia, Geneva, and St. Charles, and having Mill Creek and Blackberry Township to the west of us, you had a lot of people with money. And that's a very common thing that you hear in the Tri-Cities today, that you want to get your business in Batavia, Geneva, or St. Charles because there's a lot of people in those towns that have money to spend. And I can tell you, in my other world where I'm the chairman of the Council of Mayors in Chicago, there are a lot of mayors out there that are crying real loud about their town people don't have any money to spend. And so in the case of the Tri-Cities, we have a lot of opportunities here to attract businesses that want to have money, and that's probably the reason we have so much activity on Randall Road. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. Okay, now I'm going to take you downtown here for a moment. This is the site of the old First Baptist Church at Washington Avenue and Wilson Street. And as you've seen and read and heard and listened, we've been through 3 or 4 renditions of this whole thing with Kent Jodine and company. I think we are fairly near the final moment here when we're going to get we just have to renew the TIF district idea. And Mr. Shodine tells us he's preparing to build here. So let's go to the next slide. So this is what the building will look like. The top one shows the building as it would appear from River Street, and you can see in the front of that building, the stores that are currently on River Street are still all there, and they will be there, and this will be behind it. And then there will be some more stores added up to the corner estate, and then on the second floor, I guess they're going to have some office space. And then a large part of the building here on the north end is going to be an indoor parking garage of 380 cars or some such number, and so part of which will be public parking. And so the reason I've been a supporter of this, and I continue to be, and the reason I am is that if you study the history of this type of development in other nearby communities, and I'll name Elmhurst, Downers Grove, and Western Springs as classic examples of doing this exact same thing, what this has done for them, especially Elmhurst tells me, is that they built a 12-story building in downtown Elmhurst, and one of the reasons it was successful is the fact that towns like ours reach a point when suddenly there's no more room to grow. And so when it comes time to, add new tax dollars to the community, you've got to lay it on the existing property tax repairs. Well, this one, in the case of Elmhurst, gave them a huge amount of new money that they could then hand off to the York School District at a time when York wasn't thinking they were going to get much development at all. So it really is good, and I guess buildings like this, most of it will either be apartment or condo, will attract, and I've had a number of Batavians of older age come and talk to me about when's this going to get done, because I want to buy a unit there, because then I can spend 3 months down in Florida, and I can go to my daughter's house in Colorado for Christmas, and I can just lock the door and leave and not have to worry about anything. So there is a market for this house, I will tell you that. Then as long as we're on River Street, I just threw a slide in here showing all the activities, and this is kind of a work in progress. And thanks to the dynamics of the Batavia Chamber of Commerce and the Batavia Main Street program, we really have brought some really interesting features to downtown Batavia and continue to. And it's working out so that we can, once we get rid of the pandemic, we can do something down there almost all year long of some type of activity. And most of it is all involving families and residents, and it's all right out there in the open, and some of it's going to have tents and heaters and whatever. But we're very pleased with the success of that. So let's go to the next. Now the latest one we've just added is across the street at River and Wilson on the southeast corner. And we've added the infamous boardwalk shops, again, basically under the leadership of the Batavia Main Street organization with the support of the Batavia Chamber. And I've got a list of people here, but I'm hesitant to read it just because I forget somebody who has been, but this was hand-built by the students at Batavia High School's Industrial Arts Department, framed it, and then the frames were moved down and put up by a group of volunteers, members of the City Council, and certainly I want to credit Bob Hanson and Rob Hollis for their efforts in kind of driving this thing along, and certainly Jamie Som, who has been kind of the engineer, the foreman, and the overseer of this thing from the moment it hit the ground before. So we've got some people who have really made this their heart and soul of an issue. And again, it seems to be being well received and is kind of mentoring and bringing forth new businesses that want to come into downtown Batavia. So let's go down. Okay, just moving up the street, you've just got through this year, or we're still finishing part of it. We got able to get about $5 million in town this year to do $2.5 million of street work over on Main Street from Water out to Van Noordtreek, and $2.5 million down on Prairie Street from Pine up to Wilson. And then when we got done with that, again in Chicago, the feds say to me, you know, we don't really, that railroad crossing you got at Wilson and Prairie is kind of not within the regulations. You got too much traffic going over it on a daily basis. The trains aren't going fast, but that needs to be a gated intersection. So we were able to obtain a federal grant. Now this is maybe because of the way the funding's starting to stack up. I'm not optimistic that this is going to happen right away, but we do have an approved federal grant to put a two-legged I'll call it a four-legged intersection. Two legs of it are going to have crossing gates fairly quickly, hopefully, so that we will eliminate that problem in Batavia going forth. I'm sure everybody here has been through that intersection many times, and you've probably been stopped by the train. Train generally comes no more than once or twice a day, and it's very slow moving because the only place they can go is to the Batavia and West Chicago industrial parks, and then they have to turn around and come back because there's not a connection to the UP line like there used to be. So that's just the way it is. So let's jump back downtown, and here we have Riverside Pizza, and then Daddy-O's Diner, and those are two of our restaurants who are fighting the great battle right now to keep customers coming in with carryouts. And this, of course, is in the former Walgreens store because the new Walgreens store was just built across from the parking lot. We all know that. Let's go to the next slide. And then we have a new restaurant coming into downtown Batavia, and I can talk about this one because they're literally down there doing it right now. In the old Aliano's restaurant at the south end of, at the corner of Houston and Island Avenue, two ladies who own a restaurant in Springfield have come to Batavia, and I think there's some family things going on up in this part of the state, so they wanted to get closer to some stuff. I think they're leasing out their restaurant in Springfield to some other family members, but they're coming into Batavia, and they're building the Windmill Grill and Pizzeria. And they've talk about gutting someplace. Let me just tell you, they've been inside that building, and if you were in there previously, you're going to go in there now, you're not going to recognize it because it's going to be a whole new operation. But we're very pleased to have them come into town. Let's go to now we have another one. This is kind of a work in progress. Enticing Cuisine has moved itself out, and they've moved up to the old Columbia Park on North Washington Avenue, where it's going to allow them to have a banquet hall, which I'm sure will be utilized because they have a great reputation. Jason has a great reputation for the quality of his food, but he's going to move up there. And let me just say that we are in some interesting discussions with another restaurant that wants into this location. And if they come, I think there's going to be a lot of people very pleased that that one is showing up. I can't say any names yet because I talked to Mr. Dempsey as late as last night and said, he says, no, we probably shouldn't say anything. We got to get some contracts signed and whatever have you. But I think there's going to be another restaurant coming in there. And then let's go to this one. This is the old Batavia Library, or Newton House as we call it, up at the corner of Batavia Avenue and Wilson Street. And this is Giabella's Design Artisan Market is in the front end of the building and in the north end of the building. But I took this picture of kind of the southwest side of the building, which used to be where the children's library was when this was a library. And let me just say that we have another discussion going on with another restaurant I think is pretty serious about moving into that space. And then there'll be restaurants on both sides of Wilson Street out there. The Marconi family has done a very nice job over the years, starting with their Joe, when he first started, bought the old funeral home and turned that into, his clothing stores and all the other stuff that he had, his market. And now they've taken the back, and we've had Gammon Coach House. So now Gammon Coach House is going to have a neighbor across the street, which sounds like it's going to have a deck or a patio coming out the side door. And so there'll be a lot of eating going on at the corner of Wilson Street and Batavia Avenue in the near term. So then we just jump down the street. We go to the old, I'll call it liquor store that stood at the corner of First and Batavia Avenue, kitty corner from the library's parking lot. And this has been, is owned by Polly Ernson, whose husband Dick had his liquor store in there for a number of years. But it's now been taken over by their daughter, Abby, and her husband, Jeff Beck. And they are in the process of starting to gut this out, and they're going to be making a restaurant out of this building. So if you start adding all these up, I'm 3 or 4 new restaurants that you haven't even eaten yet, but that maybe a year from now we'll be sitting here talking to you about coming to Batavia. So we're excited about this, and Abby is a pretty thorough person. She's very dedicated to downtown Batavia. And so we are, I think, are very optimistic that we're going to be a booming thing. And the great part about it is this was all coming on us at a time when Fermilab on a week-by-week basis is bringing in foreign scientists from 30 different countries, and they're coming in and getting their nose into the computers. And as they tell me out at Fermilab, about 15 or 20 hours later, they suddenly feel like they're getting hungry and they need to go get something to eat. And it's good to have all this availability in Batavia. So the next one we got is Aquaviva, which is the new, was opened up in the past year at Water in Houston. Let's go to the next one. Then across the street, Tabitha Mueller has opened up, reopened the Batavia popcorn stand to really grand status, and is popping a lot of popcorn down there of various flavors. And really, this is one of the older businesses in downtown Batavia going back to 1929. Now it's moved around a lot because they can pick that building up and go all kinds of places with it, but that is something that is going to be, I think, with us for a long time, and she's really taken it to a new height, so we're excited about that. Let's go to the next one, and this is just a sign on the door, but this is at the Panera in downtown Batavia. And let me tell you my story on that. They came in and talked to me a couple of years ago, and their whole thing was they like Batavia, great town, but they needed a drive-through window. And so they wanted us to figure out some way that they could have a drive-through window on that store. So we went over, and Batavia Enterprises, who owns the building, did a dynamic job of trying to figure out some way to do it. And the best way to have done it would have been to bring the driveway in through the First Street next to the animal doctor's office and come in and then have your car head west. But when you did that, the drive-through window would have been on the passenger side of the car. So Panera didn't like that idea. So then they looked at trying to put it on Water Street, but then they were going to be backing the cars onto Water Street, and I think their corporate attorney decided that it was too much liability by having that drive-through window staggering out into the middle of the street. So I think that was the reason that they left for the moment. They left me with the impression that if we could then find a place in Batavia that they could get a decent drive-through window, they may be willing to come back. But that was the reason that it was the drive-through. So if you look at the one they have in Aurora, at Butterfield and Kirk, or the one in Geneva on Randall Road, the drive-through window is the big thing that's on the feature on there. Next slide. Now we've got this new artesian arrival of all these new frontal businesses coming into Batavia, and we've got Bridget Johnson with Red Hive, and then we've got Leah Lehman and Joy Mason with Limestone Coffee, and these are up and going and really rocking places even with the pandemic, and so we're very pleased to have them as part of us. Then let's go to the next slide. Across the river, we've got this south side of Wilson Street from the river up to River Street, and we've got Hearth of the Home, which is the Cook family is going to be moving in a kitchen remodeling and design store. And we got Batavia Dance Academy, and then we got Ruby Jane's children's clothing store. And then we've got insurance, but then up in the corner at the old bank, we've got the Marconi family again. And Michael Marconi is having a lot of dynamic conversations about, interesting, I can't again say because we're not sure what, but he's got some very interesting ideas for that building. That's got a drive-through window on the back of it too, so I'm not sure how that all is going to work out. Let's go to the next slide. Across the street, we've got 6 Plus Cypress, which is kind of speaking for itself, and Wilson Street Tavern, which is doing a nice job. And then we've got Oak and Swine and Bocaditos. And so again, that's all part of this new restaurant movement that we got, and most of those folks have opened up a open area there on the city property where eventually Shodine will be being built, but then they can also share in the River Street areas, so I'm thinking we've got them. And let's jump to the next slide. This is the construction on South Batavia Avenue, which is going on as we speak, and we hope to have this kind of put back into public use function here pretty quickly, because we've got a whole bunch of neat little facilities of businesses down there of hair care and Beards Guards and West DuPage kitchen furniture, and Wolf Wash, and Charlie Fox's, and Batavia Dental, and Coast Hair Salon, and J. DeCarlo's hair salon, and we've just got a lot of great stuff. Scott Queen, so that'll be coming back. I guess we're now wanting to call that the what? Corridor, the corridor, yeah. So then if we jump out to Randall Road, we are being told by Menards that they're going to build additions onto 3 different parts of their building, and they're going to build so much new building onto that building that they had to go, let's go to the next slide quickly because we're getting short on time here. They bought the property across the street right to the east of the Raising Canes, and they're going to be putting in a very large, professionally manicured retention pond there, and they're going to take all their water, because they're going to use their retention pond over there now for their new expansion. And so they're going to put this there. And then I was talking to Austin Dempsey yesterday, and he tells me he thinks there's another deal going to pop for the area to the south of Raising Canes. So we think that there's going to be some more activity there. And let's move to this. Is the current vacant bank up at near the corner of Fabian and Randall, and it's now been bought by First Midwest, which is out on, or First State, I guess we call it, out at Wilson and Randall, and they're going to be moving up to this location, and they're going to open November 14th. Then we go to the next slide. This is the newest addition to the Suncast building in Batavia, which makes this the largest factory in town. And they make a lot of different lawn and garden equipment for Walmart and others, and nice company to have in town. And then let's jump back over to the west side, and this is Hearth and Hammer, and this is our candle maker that we've got right behind the West Side Business District, and she's got a very dynamic business going in there. If you need any candles, that's a good place to stop. And then going out onto Randall Road, we've got the Windmill Manor, which is 75 units of senior living housing that's right behind the Walmart. And then across the street from that, we have the Landings, which is going to have 142 units, which will be opening probably, they're going to, I think, start showcasing themselves here pretty quick here around the first of the year. But this will be, I will describe this as kind of an upscale senior living community, and it's very nice, and it's delightful people to deal with. And the guy that built it came in and told me how much he was spending to build this. This was a huge investment. Let's go to the next slide. This is over at the corner of Walnut near Harrison, and this is a sidewalk that I'll give credit to the Second Ward Alderman Alan Wolf and Marty Callahan that got built. And this, because this was an old railroad right-of-way that goes down to right next to Gustafson School. And when the right-of-way was built, they took out the railroad tracks that were there because they weren't used anymore. But let's go to the next slide. This is the property across the street, which is where the old Sycora greenhouse used to be. And the railroad track went right next to that for the reason that the Sycoras had a very professional growing operation there. And they were the supplier for many of the flowers used in the Rose Bowl parade. So in early December of many years, they would bring in these railroad cars and sit them on Walnut Street, and the Sycoras and the Klein family who ran that would run out and pack them full of roses, and then they would run them down to Aurora and put them on the Burlington line and go to California with it. So I'm hoping that if we get a redevelopment there, we'll get a plaque there that says this is the site where the Rose Bowl flowers were growing. And then going over to the east side, this is Prairie Commons, and this is 242 townhouses right next to Fermilab. And I think some Fermilab interest has already been in there, but these are selling out pretty rapidly. And this is probably going to be the last big residential development on the southeast side of Batavia, because we're kind of running out of land. But we're right next to Aurora at this location. Okay, the next one. This is the one of great question. This is the old Furnace Electric property on Van Noordtreek at McKee Street. And it's been vacant. There's a big story with it. I'm not going to get into that. But this right now, we think it may be coming on the market in the next year or two. But right now, it's not all owned by the same people. There's a Batavia family who owns a great large piece of this, and they were leasing the property to Furnace, later Siemens. And so there's some property ownership that's there, and there had to be some, when Siemens part of it, they had to do some cleanup, which has all been done, so it's a right piece. The city has rezoned the property for residential use, so we'll see what happens, but that's kind of the plan for that one. And then going over to the east side, this is the corner at Fabian and Kirk Road, and there's 80 acres right on the corner, 40 on the southeast corner and 40 on the southwest corner. In the southeast corner, the land is owned by Aldi grocery stores, and the southwest corner is owned by Joe Keim, and Joe Keim's telling us he's ready to sell it. And then let's jump out here. This is out on West McKee Street, right behind Wolcott and Trent Drives, and this is the old Landmeyer farm, as we called it. There's some cell towers out there. You can see them in the picture. And we are in the discussions right now of well, first it was MI Homes, now I guess it's Pulte wants to take this and open up a residential subdivision, and we're still having discussions with them about how many units that were going to be there, but it's well over 100 more houses will be put there. And then over on the jump over to the east side again. This is over on Pearson Drive in the industrial park, and Northern Illinois Construction, I guess they call themselves, Northern Builders, has bought this piece, and they're going to build a 207,000 square foot industrial building for subleasing. And so you can see there's a bulldozer sitting there. They're just about to start construction. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, we've got a lot of beautiful trees in town this year. And I just took this picture to illustrate because we've had a great season of color. But the one thing we've got is that in about 1953-54, there was this thing called the Dutch Elm Disease that came through Batavia and raided it, and all the trees had to get cut down. So Batavia at that point created a tree commission. And Frank Sopp, who's our city arborist, now tells me that he estimates that between the new construction that we've required every new house to have at least one tree, and what the tree commission did back then and what they did now, these trees that were planted after the Dutch Elm Disease are now nearing 65, 70 years of age, and they're getting old. And so they're starting to crack and fall down. And so this next picture shows you what happened to us on Union Avenue a couple weeks ago when one of the old trees came down on our electric system and really gave us all kinds of problems. We were there for 2 days shutting people's power off on the southwest side of town because of having to rebuild. I mean, this did massive damage to it. And it's just all these old trees are getting old and they're coming down, and I don't know what the answer to that is necessarily. Here's the new map they put out of downtown Batavia, and I think we're giving some of these to Fermilab. Right now the map says we got 25 or 35 restaurants in downtown Batavia. And it's got where they're at and their address. So, and then let's go to the next slide. This is a assemblage of all the Batavia Police Department patches of the last 40 years. And I show these only because I want to pay a word of tribute to the Batavia Police Department. They are under tremendous demand for service. We've had a real run this year of crime coming at us off the internet. We've had this terrible problem of identity theft we've had all kinds of people have their names filed for unemployment assistance. It was totally false. We've had all kinds of credit card numbers stolen. We've got 3 or 4 officers that are doing nothing but dealing with all this type of crime. Then we've been hit with a whole bunch of issues of mental illness, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. We've had to hire Association for Individual Development to come in with crisis counselors now because we have such a big demand of that. So we're really under pressure, and beyond that of just trying to maintain our presence to keep the bad guys out of town and solve things that are going on. But we really use our police department to the fullest extent, and it's important that we have them. Next slide. And I'm only showing this with my picture in it because, Laura, this is the moment when we got classified as a Insurance Services Office Class 1, which meant that we now have the best fire insurance rating in the United States of America. And there's only several dozen fire departments in Illinois that have this rating. We got an ISO Class 1, so that should have a positive impact on people's house insurance and on business insurance. And then I'm just going to put another plug in for River Street because the dynamics of the moment are we're looking at other things to do down there, and we'll see where we want to go. And part of our strategic plan that we've just agreed upon is to focus on downtown redevelopment, and whether it be River Street or the Shodine project or a number of other things that are happening. Downtown Batavia is right now probably at an all-time high. And I just want to share a couple of good stories, and then I'm done here. Let's go to the next one. This is Chicago Export Importers, which is out in the industrial park. And this is owned as a foreign ownership, but the folks that own this have some direct connection to face masks. And so the owners called me and say, we would like to make a donation to the city of Batavia. So let's go to the next slide, if you could. So they came down. This is Deputy Chief Autenreef from the Batavia Police Department. And he is receiving they gave us 4 cases of face masks for the fire and police department. So we have them in the ambulances, we have them in the police cars, so if we get into a situation anybody needs a face mask, we got it, and we got it free of charge from this Batavia business, so I just wanted to commend them. And let's go to the next slide. This has just happened last week. We had the ribbon cutting for the Habitat for Humanity's 4 new houses, which are being built out at West Wilson Street and Independence Drive out there in front of the El Taco Grande the Shell station, I guess, is probably its landmark, and the First State Bank are the ones that are its neighbors. But it's there, and that's a nice project to have in town because it's on the site of the old city water tower. And then we have the next slide is the Batavia Water Street Studios, and with their new Taylor Egan, their new executive director, they've come up and they're going to take the alleyway on the east side of the building and put that into an activities area, and we've already started doing some decoration of situations there. And let's go to the next slide. Another thing I want to pay some tribute to is the Batavia Interfaith Food Pantry and Clothes Closet under Eileen Pizzaro. She has done a dynamic job down there, and the volume of that place just continues to go up. And I also want to pay a word of tribute to Melinda Kintz, our director of our United Way system, because they're, again, raising their stakes and are serving a whole bunch of people that are kind of in need and have trouble. And the final thing I would like to just share as a fact is that in 1986, the city of Batavia's property tax rate for every taxpayer in Batavia was $1.10 for your tax bill. So through all this activity that I've just covered and shared with you, I am very proud today to announce that the City Council has made the decision that we are going to hold our tax rate at what it was last year, which was 73 cents. So we are 37 cents under what we were back in 1986, at a time when I think everybody's going to welcome the idea that we're not hitting you with a big tax bill from the city, because we've been able to keep our rate. And the only way we have been able to is we've had all this good luck and all this great opportunity by these visionary people that came in and made the decisions to do this stuff and set us up so that we could carry forth. And certainly downtown Batavia is beginning to be a show place. I'm getting other cities calling and wanting to come in and see it and see what's going on and how are we doing it. So we're doing something right here, and we couldn't do it without the partnership we have from the Batavia Chamber of Commerce. And so I just want to thank Margaret and her staff for the great thing that's going on. And to kind of conclude the program and end this year's, I want to go to the next slide. Now, one of the things we've started in Batavia at Christmas time is we have this thing called the Charlie tree. And this is a situation, this is a picture of Charlie and me, and this is the name of Charlie Chemis, who used to be the water superintendent foreman for the Batavia Water Utility. And he was born originally in Mexico, and he always used to kid that we didn't have any Mexican identity for Christmas. So the guys at Public Works asked Charlie what he said. So Charlie said, well, you need to have a all red lighted Christmas tree. So let's go to the next slide. So we now have a Charlie tree, and I know a lot of families in Batavia now make it an annual event because we move this tree around downtown every year. It's in a different location. So everybody goes out, takes their little kids and goes out and looks for the all-red Christmas tree, which is named for Charlie Chemis. We call it the Charlie Tree, and it's out there, and it's become kind of one of Batavia's festive holiday attractions. So I'm going to conclude now with this last slide with that sentiment, because again, this is to the work of the Batavia Park District and Craig Foltos that we've got this Peace on Earth message that we keep up now through sometime in January, and I think it speaks well for the moment of everything we're faced with. So I'm well past my time here, and so I just want to thank you for your attendance, and we will be around if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Schilke. It was an excellent, informative presentation. Once again, we have an amazing town that is strong and resilient, and we know it's no easy task to pilot during these times, so we appreciate your excellent leadership. I do want to apologize to those on Zoom that we had some technical difficulties. Hopefully you were able to pivot over to YouTube. Thank you, Jen Friends, for your leadership and your sponsorship with BATV. We appreciate your help. I want to, before we depart, I want to let you know that the Chamber is accepting nominations for the 2020 Citizen of the Year. So if you know an excellent resident who has made positive impact on our community this year, please submit your nomination letter to me at the Chamber. We are going to celebrate the Citizen, we'll announce the Citizen of the Year, the winner, after Thanksgiving, but we will celebrate their honor in May of 2021. That's when we will host our Inspire Award. I want to let you know the Chamber is collecting items for the Batavia Toy Access Drive and Batavia United Way gift cards and unused, unopened toys at the Chamber office. I also would like to let you know that the Chamber is investing $5,000 into our local economy by sponsoring a 50% donation of Chamber bucks. So between November 16th, or following November 16th, until we cap at $2,500, we will double the purchase of Chamber bucks. Each person is allowed to buy $50 worth. So we're excited about that. Please remember to support your local restaurants on ordering food to go. Refer to Batavia Restaurants drive-through and curbside delivery document that is listed on our Chamber website to know how to grab your favorite food. As always, please follow us on Facebook and check the Chamber's website, bataviachamber.org, to register for our events, sign up as a business or a community member, and find other pertinent information. So now I'd like to wrap up this terrific morning. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the beautiful day outside. Let's go out there and continue making Batavia a great place to call home. Thank you.